Chapter 1. When we finally met, Lucy and her two cousins came to pick me up late one night. It was a nice ride, and I was thankful to get away from where I was after the grueling heat and crack cocaine of the previous 2 months. Lucy had a beautiful face, but she was a bigger girl. I didn't mind that, but she was one of those that wouldn't give you the full scope of her size because online she didn't want to take pictures that were accurate. Basically, she was a manipulator, just like me. We both lied about something. Her size, and me? Well, I didn't lie. I just didn't tell her that I had a drug problem that I was trying to escape. I liked her, though. She was a loner, and we got along on the phone, so I decided to ride this out and see where it went. When we got to her town, we pulled up to her trailer in the trailer park they lived in. It was small, but pretty well maintained. She lived with her grandma and her brother Ralph, the second worst person I have ever met. Immediately, I could tell he was high on meth, but he seemed like a nice enough guy. Could I have ever been more wrong? The answer is no. I asked her why she didn't tell me her brother was a meth head, and she said, "I didn't want you to think of me as a bad person because of my brother. I just wanted a chance." This whole situation was bad, but being away from where I was all I cared about, and so the bad vibe sense was pushed away. I should have not pushed it away. I had never done meth before and didn't start at this moment. My friend had always told me not to do it, so I was afraid of it anyway. But I got to see firsthand what it did to people. Ralph had a huge truck, and so we all piled into it, me, Lucy, and him. It was late at night, so we took a ride. This was truly a country family. Redneck is the word that came to mind. The first night was pretty fun, riding around and talking. We went to bed without incident and woke up the next morning to them wanting me to make breakfast, since I had told them all that I could cook very well. So I did. I don't remember what we had, but it was a nice breakfast. I brought her grandma a plate because she was in a wheelchair. Then I did the dishes. I was trying to make the best impression that I could, and it was working. That night, after driving around for a little while and meeting some of Ralph's friends, we got a phone call from one of them that said he was about to get into a fight. And since Ralph was high on meth, he wanted everything to do with that. So we drove over there. I was down for whatever and told him. While we waited for the fight to come to his friend's house, we smoked a blunt. It quickly became apparent that the people that wanted to fight did not actually want to fight, just talk smack, so we left. While on the way, another friend of his called and said that some guys were coming over to jump him. Once again, off we went back to the trailer park. This time, when we got there, Ralph told Lucy to go inside and stay there, and to pray that God was with us. He told her that he did not want her to see this, and then he grabbed a Louisville Slugger baseball bat and told me to grab a 3-foot-long 2x2 plank. From there, we started to run between trailers until we got to his buddies, an Army vet heroin addict. When we arrived, there were other people there, and Ralph told them what the plan was. He was going to beat them to death with the baseball bat. We were then to drag them into the field, dig a hole, throw the bodies in. Everyone was to touch the murder weapons, and we would bury the weapons in the hole with the bodies. Just at that point, when everyone was in shock from the statement, the people pulled up. Ralph and I hid beside a trailer as two very big guys walked up to his friend. Without any hesitation, Ralph came out of hiding and started swinging. The first thing that was said was, "Oh crap, they have bats!" And then Ralph missed with the first swing, but not the second. The guy he hit was instantly on the ground, and they slid into the cornfield where Ralph began beating him profusely in the head with the bat. His buddy was not about to let this happen, and so he started running up behind Ralph to save him. The 5 others there, including myself, were still in shock, but when I watched the guy's buddy running up on Ralph, I yelled out, "Behind you!" It was right at the perfect time. Ralph heard it, spun, and when the guy hit him, he flipped him over his head and into the cornfield as well. Then Ralph grabbed the bat and started beating the guy in the face with the tip, ramming it downward grossly. The sounds that these two guys were making were sounds that, up until this moment in time, I had never heard come out of a man's throat before. These were fear cries. These guys knew that they were about to die. To stop the other guy from jumping in, I ran up with my 2x2 out and told him to stay down. When he tried to get up, I hit him twice on the side of the leg at the knee joint. He made those same death sounds. I couldn't take this anymore. I looked at him and told him to get the heck out of here, both of you. At that moment in time, they were blessed by God, because Ralph stopped beating the other and let him get up to run away with his friend. As they were running away, they jumped into their van and started yelling at us that we were dead. At this, Ralph threw the bat at the passenger side window from about 30 feet away, the bat just barely missing going into the passenger side window of the van. At this moment, they stopped like they were going to pick up the bat, but then thought different and screeched off. Let me just say this. If not for me telling them to leave, they would have been dead men, and I would have been part of a murder. I saved their lives. This was the most terrifying moment of my life. When we got back to the trailer, I was a hero. I had proved myself that I had meth head Ralph's back. And that night, Lucy and I had sex for the first time, and it was amazing. Condom at first, but after the night I had, the condom came off and stayed off every time from then on. I was part of this family. I was invited to stay there. End of day 2. After that, it never got that bad again, but it was still very bad. In order to get high, Ralph would try to find people that would go into pharmacies and buy Sudafed for him. He would pay any person $20 to do it, and then sell the box called boxes to the dope man for between a half gram and a gram of dope per box. One day, he asked me if I knew anyone that would buy boxes, and I told him that I could probably get a lot of people that I knew in my last town to do this, so he handed me and Lucy $300 and told us to bring back as many boxes as possible. Lucy and I took a ride to my old town, but on the way, I told her that I could probably buy an 8-ball of crack and sell it to make even more money than we had to buy boxes, and that I could do it quickly because I knew just the person to take it to. So that is what we did. When I got the dope, we drove over to my ex-wife's uncle, and I went inside telling her to wait for me, that I would try not to be long. When I got inside, I said, let's try this and see how it is. It wasn't great, but as soon as I hit it, I wanted to smoke more, naturally. I didn't sell any of it, and had to finally come out and tell her that I had smoked it all. She was devastated. This was the first time that she found out I smoked crack, and I had just spent about $175 on crack out of the $300 and still had to buy boxes. At $12 a box and $20 to each buyer, I could only afford 3 boxes instead of 7 or 8 if done right. So, we started buying boxes ourselves. 1 each because we hadn't bought boxes ourselves yet. By the way, back then you were allowed to buy 3 boxes in a 30-day period, and no more than 2 in a week by federal regulation. From what I understand now, though, you have to have a prescription for all over-the-counter Sudafed purchases, period. We spent $24 there and still had $100 left. I was able to get 2 other people to buy them for us as well, at $60, but that was all. We then had to figure out what to do about the missing $175. Luckily, Lucy had some money in the bank and said that she would cover $100, so that we could give her brother back $140 in 4 boxes. It worked, thank God, because as you can imagine, I did not want to be on Ralph's bad side. Eventually, Ralph had a friend that was trying to learn how to shake and bake meth, and so of course, Ralph wanted to learn how as well. This is when I found out that he was the best thief I had ever met. He started stealing supplies needed to shake up 2.2 grams of meth in a bottle. Once he had all the supplies, it was time to shake it up. He did this in the trailer with his grandma, Lucy, and I all present. The trailer belonged to his grandma, and she allowed this to take place. She was 78 years old. After a little trial and error, these guys got it down pat. The trailer started smelling from the gassing of the bottle, and Grandma said that they couldn't do it in the house anymore. So the 2 guys, being tweakers, created an enclosed porch outside where they could do all of their dirty work, eventually converting a shed to their base of operations. It was all very disgusting, to be honest. Now I want to go back a little ways. For the last year and a half, I had spent $18,000 building a smartphone game, and everything was set up for my partner and I to become successful. We were getting ready for the event that we were sponsoring, but right before that time came, Lucy suggested that we take a trip to New York. In order to do this, we needed to rent a car because we didn't have one. Neither of us had a debit card, so we convinced Gran to rent the car in her name. After hours of trying to accomplish this, going round and round with the rental company, trying to make sure that they didn't find out that we were the ones that would be driving the car, we finally got Gran in and had her drive us around the corner, where we could move her to the back so one of us could drive. After we got Gran home and out of the car, I was ready to hit the road. We had all the details set up. We had a place to stay with Lucy's aunt out in New York, and a plan to promote the game on the day of the event in Manhattan instead of me being at the event personally. I had 2,000 business cards ready to pass out. I was ready to go. After 5 hours of having the car and asking Lucy if she was ready yet, her balking each time, I finally said, "Look, we have this car for a week. Can we please get on the road?" At this, she looked at me and said, "You aren't even paying for this trip. My grandma is. Chill out." I was not at all ready for that response. This was the first time Lucy had acted that way. We had been together for about 45 days. This response pissed me off, and really, I had had enough of Ralph, and recently, Gran had started in on me as well for not having a job. After we had gotten back from my town buying boxes, Lucy had quit her job. Everyone was blaming me for that. We had met early October, and now we were in mid-November. In my heart, I had resolved to take advantage of this situation to promote my game in New York, and as soon as we returned, I was going to split. All I had to do was make it through the next week, and I was done with this situation. Hopefully, I would be rich after the event, and everything would move forward as my partner and I had planned. New York was the key, or so I thought.